Welcome back to America's Voice Live on this Thursday. My next guest today is Dr. John Lott. He is the president of the Crime Prevention Research Center. Now, normally, Dr. Lott and I spend a lot of time talking about guns, gun statistics, what's true, what's not, what the narrative is when it comes to guns and gun crime in America. But today we're taking a different tack because Dr. Lott, he is an academic, and he digs deep into numbers to figure out what the truth is about the numbers. And today we're going to talk about Missoula, Montana, because of the strange numbers and the anomalies and possibly fraud when it comes to the election there. Dr. Lott, thank you for being with us here today. Truly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on.
So tell us about, Missoula, Montana, great place. A river runs through it. It's known for great fishing and clean air, but voter fraud, problems with the election, not something people would normally think about. Please explain.
Yeah, Montana hasn't been on anybody's radar in terms of vote fraud, but as with much of the rest of the country, they had mail-in voting that had occurred here. Unlike the rest of the country, though, there's really only been a couple places that have looked carefully at the mail-in ballots to any extent. Maricopa County, a judge allowed 100 mail-in ballot envelopes to be examined out of about 1.63 million that were cast. In Cobb County, Georgia, the Secretary of State looked at 10% of the mail-in envelopes that were there. Of course, Cobb County wasn't the focus. Fulton County, where Atlanta, Georgia is, was where the real concerns were. But Missoula County in Montana has been the only county where an examination of all the mail-in envelopes was done. And they found some pretty startling findings. One was that there was about 6.3% more votes than you had envelopes, which is technically impossible. You can't have a mail-in vote without an envelope there, and you need the envelope to check the date that was recorded and also to see if the signature matches. And so for 6.3% of the votes, they weren't able to do that. And then on top of that, even where there were envelopes, dates were missing, and also you had cases where they hadn't checked the signatures. You add all those up, and you're talking about over 7% of the votes. There are other problems that occurred. The county election.
So hold on. I want to back up. I want to take these one at a time. 6.3% of the mail-in ballots had no envelope. Right. Where did they come from? Well, where did they come from? And then 7% ballots, signature problem, no envelope, no way to say that, yes, this is a valid ballot. 7% of a vote in elections all over this country would be easily the difference in the outcome of races, would it not?
Oh, sure. In Missoula County, it's the second largest county in the state. It's heavily Democratic. Obviously, that margin of 7%, there are many local races that fell within that margin. And also, it's such a large county relative to the state that having 7% of the votes there can affect statewide elections and would have decided statewide elections in the past if that margin was the same in recent past elections.
So, again, I'm stuck on where did the ballots come from that have no envelopes? Were they dropped off? Are they fraudulent? Are you saying that? Or are you just saying it doesn't make sense and we don't know?
Well, we don't know completely yet. Part of the problem is that the county is obligated by law to keep a video record of everything that had occurred, both the opening of the envelopes as well as the counting of the ballots. And they were warned that this audit was going to be occurring even before the election. But the video is missing. All the videos are missing. So it's impossible to kind of track exactly what happened with these things. The county is basically saying that people are supposed to trust them, that they properly handled all the envelopes and recorded them.
So who's responsible for the videos? If that's the law is broken. Somebody has to be held to account. But oftentimes, as we have seen through this entire process of the 2020 election, many times people are not held to account. What's going to happen in Missoula County, Montana?
Well, the governor of the state today announced that he had talked to the Secretary of State about the issues with regard to Missoula. It's my understanding is that next week the Secretary of State is going to be meeting with the majority leader of the state house and I believe possibly some of the committee chairmen who would be reviewing this. And I think it's likely that the state Senate Judiciary Committee will hold a hearing in April to go and look into these issues. I mean, I've been involved in a lot of depositions over my life, and I can go and tell you that the elections director for Missoula County is going to be on a hot seat because he's issued multiple conflicting statements over time about how the process was done. And it's going to be difficult for him to go and reconcile the different contradictory statements that he's made.
You know, sitting here having you tell the story to me, Doctor, makes me think that this is a test case for those trying to figure out, okay, if we're going to game the system, I mean, maybe I'm just that jaded, but it makes me think that if someone's going to, game a system, whether it was in Montana or elsewhere, you go to a place where they don't pay attention much to fraud and you see, okay, how does this work? If we could do this, no envelopes, if we did this or did that, 7%. I mean, that's a big number in races that are often decided, as you know. The entire presidential election decided by 40,000 votes over 3 different states. We're not 0.5% or less. This is a very serious issue, and you're going to stay on it, I assume.
Yeah, I mean, literally, you have to go back decades to find a presidential election in the United States that was decided by more than 7%. I'm not sure if you have to go back to 84 or something like 1984, but you have to go back many decades before you find an election that was decided by more than that. And these are real concerns. People are worried about the integrity of the elections, which is one of the statements that the governor made today here in Montana. So, the question that we're facing right now is both executive orders that President Biden has signed as well as legislation, H.R. 1, that passed the House on a pure party line vote and is now before the Senate. Those actions are aimed at forcing the country to move to an all mail-in ballot type system. And at the very least, whether it's incompetence or ballot stuffing that occurred in Missoula, it raises real concerns about having this type of system applied nationwide. And it also raises the question why we haven't had more audits that are occurring in other places, really serious audits.
We should. There's no question we should. We absolutely should, based on what you've told us here. I've got to leave it there, but people can find out more at crimeresearch.org. You can find out what Dr. John Lott is doing, what he's researching, and I hope you keep digging, sir, because if we can find it in Missoula, that would be the case that would force other states to say, okay, we need to take a closer look. Appreciate your time. Great story and great information. Again, crimeresearch.org to find out more. Doctor, thank you.
Thank you.
And a quick break here on America's Voice Live for this April Fool's Day. No fool, that's serious.